The following program is paid for by Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies.
Tackling all the issues. Tackling all the issues. Great leaders on the move, on the move. Tackling all the issues. Tackling all the issues. Oh yeah. Tackling all the issues. Great leaders is on the move, on the move, on the move. Oh, on the move, the move, the move. Green leaders.
Welcome. This is Antoine, Thompson, CEO and Executive Director of Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. And welcome to our kickoff, our first broadcast of Green Leaders on the Move, an exciting show that we're going to bring you a lot of good information to make some wonderful things happen. I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about myself. I CEO and Executive Director, Antoine Thompson, Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. We're an environmental organization. I have been leading the organization over 4 years. I'm a former New York State Senator. I was the first African American to chair the Environmental Committee, which was a very influential committee in New York, so I made history with that. Also served on the Buffalo City Council. I've been involved in and out with environmental issues and clean energy, clean transportation issues over 20 years on and off. And so just excited to be on the show today. We're going to be able to share a lot of good information. We're going to have a lot of dynamic people coming on the air as well, from all over, people calling from all over the country as well, and in the studio with us as well. But our Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition is an environmental organization that focuses on reducing pollution from the transportation sector, looking at different technologies to reduce pollution and improve our climate and our environment. But most importantly, connecting those dots between transportation and its impact on public health. Oftentimes, people don't make the connection between asthma, COPD, lupus, and other respiratory-related illnesses, and the connection between those health conditions and illnesses and transportation. So this show will talk about that. We'll talk about other hot-button issues. We are a nonpartisan organization as well, but we will talk about policy. We'll talk about how you can get involved. Our organization has a number of initiatives that we are involved with that spans from the D.C. metro area all the way to Baltimore. I have the opportunity to work on projects as well around the country. And so we do some job fairs. We have a Future Green Leaders program. We also have a number of electrification and EV-related projects. We also have some biofuels projects as well. We're working with faith-based organizations. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be making a big announcement around that as well. And if you want to learn more about the organization, we actually have a free reception coming up on January 15th. We'll have our annual opening and winter reception, which will take place at 899 North Capitol Street. On January 15th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at 899 North Capitol Street Northeast. It's right near Union Station, so there's plenty of parking over there. There's also an opportunity to take public transit because we are a 5-minute walk from Union Station. Union Station also right near Capitol Hill, so it's going to be really exciting. So save the date, January 15th. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can go right to the GWRCCC.org website to register. Or you can go to GWRCCC3Cs.org to register. It is a free event, and so I encourage you all to come out. I get a chance to meet you all. We're going to have a lot of excitement, a lot of great things happening, number of speakers, information tables, all that good stuff for you to come out as well. I also just wanted to mention that we also do some policy work as well. So we go up on Capitol Hill. We go to state capitals as well, some of the local governments. We have a lot of great community partners. I also just want to do one last announcement before we go to my guest for today. On April 18th, we'll have our second annual Earth Day Walk, which will take place on the National Mall, Washington, D.C. We'll be formally announcing that. You got a sneak peek, but April 18th, you can bring your family and friends to the National Mall. We're going to have an Earth Day Walk. We'll walk around the National Mall. There'll be information tables, all different type of electric cars, biofuels vehicles, everything, information tables, lots of door prizes. We'll have some national celebrities that will be coming in town to perform, and local ones as well, on Saturday, April 18th, as we celebrate Earth Day. So I wanted to share that with you as well. So without further ado, I want to bring on my inaugural guest, who is DC native. He's a guy.
No, I'm not a DC native.
You're not a DC native?
I'm a South Carolinian.
That's right. You did know that.
I'm from South Carolina.
Well, I'll let him tell, so I don't get it wrong. My first guest, Ron Bethea. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone as well?
Well, I want to first, Antoine, thank you for this opportunity to come on your show, On the Move. And you have been on the move since I've met you and had the privilege of working in conjunction and attending many of the outstanding events and initiatives that your organization, the Greater Washington Clean Cities Collaboration Group, has put together. But I'm originally hailed from a small rural town near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm originally from Dillon, South Carolina. I was brought to the Maryland area because I played football for one of my mentors, the legendary Earl Banks. I played in the early 70s at Morgan State University. And I want to give out kudos to one of my frat brothers, Brother Anthony.
What fraternity is that?
It's Pi Alpha Upsilon.
Okay.
We're a small fraternity that most of the guys were either athletes or musicians.
Okay.
So we formed an organization, and Anthony was he just recently passed, but he did an outstanding job raising over $1 million in scholarships for Morgan students through our annual breakfast that we've been sponsoring. And Antoine, he headed that and ran that for almost 30 years, you know. But going back to what brings me here today is, Antoine, you asked me information about what brought me into the energy sector. I originally started in the transportation sector. I had a small limo company and owned several cabs, independent owner operator of taxi cab services in our nation's capital for over 40 years. And as I watched the transition through that industry, of course, I was always, as a young brother, we used to have an inside joke. You said, well, they said, but you have more jobs than the Jamaican brothers, because I was teaching school at the same time and coaching high school sports.
I know that's right.
So we understood that you always have to have more than one flow of income. But the long and short is, in around 2015, I saw. And actually in 2011, I actually saw an app, the first app, through a presentation for Uber. And I saw right then that it was going to change the landscape as it relates to the transportation for hire industry in the U.S. And being one who has always been involved on the policy end, in whatever industry I've been involved in, we were successful through a company I had called Sedan Service Plus in getting the first wheelchair accessible grants to put taxi cabs on the street of our nation's capital. So we were able to accomplish that, and we saw how that technology was going to change the game. And it did. Fast forward, I got involved in the renewable energy industry in around 2015 by, I started a purchasing cooperative called the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative. The Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative has served as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically black colleges and universities, which is a key component for the African American communities if we want to combat climate change. And in doing so, we saw the need to provide a medium of communications for African Americans in the renewable energy.
And so let's jump on that real quick. So energy burden is something that people don't always talk about in that, using that language, but energy burden is a big issue because so many people spend so much of their money on utility costs, right?
Yes.
And don't always make the connection between energy efficiency work and the high cost of utility bills and how much money. We're talking right now, we know one of the top issues is affordability, right? But African Americans have been suffering that problem for quite a long time. Would you agree with that?
Yes, completely. And one of the biggest impediments is public policy, and it's very, very important for our communities to begin to understand about regulatory entities such as an organization called the PJM, which is the regulatory entity for the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast Corridor. It has 13 states with the District of Columbia, with approximately 65 million customers. Now, they control the cost of energy, the fees that you see on your electric bill for the transfer of that electricity from point A to point B, what type of energy can be used in terms of market share, because fossil fuels still control about 85% of the market. So when we begin to look at, then they set the clearing capacity for renewables.
And let's make sure we're going to make sure our audience grows with us so that you are knowledgeable. When we talk about fossil fuels, those are items that come from the earth, right? And many of those traditional fossil fuels, many of them, unless they have some renewable, sustainable things added to them to reduce pollution and its negative impact on our health and our environment, many of those can have a negative impact on your health. But the big thing, I think, which is most important for this particular conversation, is traditional fossil fuels. Many of them, while they're important, whether it's gas, oil, et cetera, especially today, we're talking about traditional gas, not renewable natural gas, that contributes to high rates of energy costs.
Oh, no question. And with the what we call greenhouse gas emissions, which will be known as greenhouse gas emissions, which are warming our planet, which is causing climate change. Now, we have a unique situation here in the PJM because Virginia is a part of which we all know, the DMV marketplace, but very few people are conscious of the fact that the DMV market area in Loudoun County serves as the epicenter for data centers worldwide. You have over 200 data centers that have already been built in Loudoun County. This is not new. These data centers have been there for the last 30 and 40 years. Now, why people want to know what the popularity is with the advent and explosion of AI, crypto mining, and blockchain technology, which has created...
And for those that don't know what AI is, that's artificial intelligence.
We call it artificial. We inside joke in our ebonics, we call it artificial ignorance, but we call it artificial intelligence. But everybody's jumped on the AI band, and they're talking about that, but they don't understand that we are paying that cost through the pass-throughs that are passed through
the customer.
The PJM regulatory policies. And kudos off to Governor Shapiro, Governor Westmore, and the governors that make up those 13 states in the PJM region, because they have been fighting tooth and nail through the Federal Regulatory Commission to rein in those costs being passed through to
the customer.
To the customer.
So let's make it plain. So many of you get a bill and you see all these little fees at the bottom of your bill.
And they're not little anymore.
They're not little anymore. There's a lot of fees. Exactly. They're not little anymore. A lot of fees. So one of the things I want you all to understand, we're going to have a lot of different people on there. And one of the things I want to always try to do is make sure that we make it plain. We're going to have some acronyms, but I always want to connect it. How does that affect you, right? So how does that affect you? When he's talking about how the costs that some of these regional regulatory agencies charge the utility companies, whatever they charge, it gets passed directly onto your bill, right? So we're talking about how do we get affordability down, and you're trying to juggle between groceries, your rent, your mortgage. If you may be a caregiver taking care of your great-grandkids or great-great-grandkids, and you're trying to figure out, well, why does my utility bill keep going up or my gas bill keeps going up? These are some of the things. And then we want to also talk about what can you do on your own to make sure that you can take advantage of some of the government and nonprofit and foundation programs that you can put energy efficiency things like wind and solar or energy efficient windows and stuff like that. And we'll get some of those folks on the show as well that can help people save on their bills. So tell me a little bit about your efforts in solar and what made you want to get involved with solar, and your niece and how that really was been a driving force.
Well, mine.
Tell me about your niece. And
my favorite niece, her name was Aja McLeod. Aja suffered from asthma from the time she was a child. And as we know, asthma is not something that's genetic or hereditary for us as African Americans. It's our environment.
That's right.
And the air that we're breathing every day. And Aja was a graduating senior at Bowie State University, and she was at her graduation party. She had an asthma attack and left us.
Wow.
And that rocked the family.
She had an asthma attack at her graduation party.
At her graduation party and dropped dead.
Lord have mercy.
So that sort of lit a fire in me as to what can I do to educate the African and African American communities on what we need to do to get our people up to speed on how do we combat these fossil fuels and how do we clean up our air and our environments, because these things are creating health hazards for our community, as well as the constant build up of these gas turbine power plants that the tech industries are purchasing and retrofitting for gas turbine technology. And that has been the driving force behind the fossil fuel industry as relates to the issue of those pass-throughs, because they have to build those heavy transmission lines to get that power for these new power plants from point A to point B. And this is the nationwide scenario.
So let me jump in there on this. So unfortunately, some folks in our community don't realize that asthma is not hereditary. They may have the cousin, their family, other family members. I often ask people, raise your hand if you know anyone that has asthma. And it's overwhelming how many people, especially in D.C. and Prince George's County, have high rates of asthma. And a lot of that is because they live near some of the buildings they live in. Some people live inside the Beltway, outside the Beltway. For example, if you live in Prince George's County, you live outside the Beltway, inside the Beltway rather, between the Beltway and D.C. proper, you have anywhere from an 8 to 12 years shorter span of life. And some of that deals with the pollution from the factories, the machines, the highways, the bus depots, the truck depots. And so I want to just put that out there. But we only have a few minutes left, but I wanted you to give me some of your priorities that you're working on with your organization in the sustainability space, and how can people get involved for 2026?
Well, they can log on to my website at Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative, Positive Change, P as in Paul, C as in cat.com. That's positivechangepc.com. You want to click on our news and events tab. You will find we have built the most extensive database for Africans and African Americans and anyone else who want to get information on the legislation, policy, and those moving organizations across the country, such as your organization, that are involved in renewable energy. We built our own online digital podcast, radio, TV network where people can do that.
And thank you for having me on there.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
And we've been doing a podcast for almost 10 years now called Solar Now and the Future, with its economic impact on Black America. And we have had the privilege of having you and many of our leaders in the industry, people like Ted Trabue, who used to be the director for D.C. Sustainability in Washington, D.C. Now he serves on the D.C. Public Service Commission. But this brother with Mark Davis of WDC Solar, with Darrell Green, NFL Hall of Famer, started a pilot project here in the city of Washington, the nation capital, called the Solar for All pilot program in 2011. It was picked up, and the Biden-Harris administration put $7 billion into that program. And then went across the country. It was supposed to benefit 900,000 low and moderate income residents. I mean, we are facing an issue right now where our state attorney general's offices and offices of people's counsels have had to bring litigation against the present administration because they are trying to claw back that funding. And Congress has already approved that. $3 billion, that is for weatherization.
Yeah, and so
environmental justice programs. We're talking $1.3 trillion that the Biden-Harris administration bought in through the Invest in America agenda. $133 billion from 77 foreign corporations.
And so why that matters, ladies and gentlemen, is because one, it'll help you bring down, those investments would help you bring down your utility costs. So when we're talking about clean energy, it's not just about the birds. And having birds around and clean air and clean water and clean air is very, very important. We also want to make sure that we can afford to live the lives that we like. And the more that we invest in things that can keep less air going out your window, less air going out from under your doors, right? Making sure that air in your home is cleaner, right? Making sure that you can afford more energy efficient appliances so that your refrigerator is not jacking up your bill, in addition to all these other outside factors, the things that you can control that we want to do. And there are things that local, state, and federal lawmakers can do to help bring down your utility costs, but it also impact the environment. So I just want to share that. I want to just ask you really quickly, we have 7 minutes left, but I want to give you a chance to talk about why African Americans should get solar in their home, and what are some couple tips that you can offer them.
Well, this is what I am saying, what the tip that I need to get to our people, our community nationwide. When Trump came in the first day, January 21st, 2025, he signed a rash of executive orders. Very few people understand he signed an executive order that rolled back the 30% federal tax credit for rooftop solar. It was not due to sunset originally. I think it was a later date, but it was rolled back to actually September 31st of this year. So that's no longer available, but there are some options. If you can, people will call and ask about what the initiatives are available through their state energy offices and find out about those programs. One of the biggest problems we have now going on in the solar industry is so much fraud in terms of most of the people who own their homes, they're baby boomers, and you have people, if you live inside the District of Columbia, we call all rooftops are valuable because of what we call our energy credits. The RECs, they have the highest energy credits in the world in the district. They're about $325 per kilowatt hour. It means it takes 1,000 kilowatts to make 1 kilowatt hour. Those are sold and traded every day on the commodities market. And in Washington, D.C., because we know we don't have a lot of space there, is that it has pushed up such a demand for rooftops. So in the solar industry right now, people need to be really careful, and they need to ask some very, very pointed questions.
We're going to have 4 minutes left. Just two quick questions to ask. I'll have you come back, okay?
Okay. One of the things that they need to do is contact if you're living in the District of Columbia, you need to get in contact with the Office of the People's Counsel for the Public Service Commission in Washington, D.C., and the Department of Energy and Environment, and find out what policies and what programs are still
before you sign a contract.
Yes. Also, you need to know that if these companies file bankruptcy and they want to put a balloon payment on that, because they're selling those mortgages, because a lot of people are financing these solar systems, and that's what's happening. You had over 13,000 solar installation and design firms. About 1/3 of those companies filed bankruptcy in 2025. So
wow.
The solar industry is in a traumatic situation right now.
So you need to be careful, right?
You need to be very careful.
The question, do you buy or lease? That's a question that people ask all the time.
If you can buy. If you can do a home equity and buy your own system and put on your roof, because the RECs will be back. Because there are benefits from doing that, and we are hoping that we'll be able to, with the midterms and the elections in 28, to flip this situation around so we can get these policies reinstated because they're desperately needed in our community.
So let me just thank Mr. Ron Bethea for coming on. That's a really good question. I want to get you back on sometime in April to talk about solar around Earth Day, because many people ask the question. They think that they can get a free where they don't have to put any money down. Ownership is often better than leasing. So I'm glad that you said that. We have only a few seconds left. I want to first thank you all for joining us today. This is Antoine Thompson with Green Leaders on the Move, Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. Next, I'll be on in 2 weeks from today. We'll have the lines open for you to call in as well. So save the time. 2 weeks from today at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I know many people are listening from all over the country. Also, make sure that you register for our opening reception on Thursday, January 15th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at 899 North Capitol Street in Washington, D.C. We're going to have a nice opening reception, kicking off the year, talking about our priorities and focus as well. You can go to GWRCCC.org. Until next time, this is Antoine Thompson with Green Leaders on the Move.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies.
The preceding program was paid for by Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition.